I remember being very saddened at the time, and obviously we were watching the news the night before, and as it turns out, late Madiba's home was really near to where I lived at the time, and I thought I really wanted to go there in the morning, and there's only a few people that I've lit candles for in my life, and he became one of them. And I remember arriving at the house, and there was this outpouring of emotion, and Mareka from Mark was there, and I remember seeing her, and everyone was singing and chanting. It was a really beautiful scene. So I lit my candle and I put it down. I thought, well, I've got to get to work and come and see what's happening here. And I got in the car, and obviously we'd sadly had to prepare for this day. And at the time, Paradise Road was playing on the radio. And I remember crying the whole way to work. I was really moved, by somebody who I didn't have a personal relationship with, but who had such amazing meaning to our country. And as the day unfolded inside the building, this extreme outpouring of emotion from our listeners and from our own staff, and taking people's calls and listening to the tears of their personal experiences with Madiba and sharing those, and the emotions that everybody went through. It was a very tough day. And I remember lying in the park at the end of the day after we'd all exhausted ourselves with dealing with it from inside, because outside there was this thing happening, but inside we were dealing with the story, and we were breaking that story to the public. So I remember lying in the park and thinking, I'll always remember this day as a very sad day, but it was also a great day of a celebration of a man who just brought such great joy to our nation.
Walking down Voderwold, just 5 minutes away from Jacaranda, and I saw it was trending down on Twitter. And I did not believe it first, but then when I got to the studios, I saw the whole news department was here and they were working really hard. And I was about to go on air, and I was forced literally to break the news right there on the spot that Madiba has just moved on.
And how did you feel as a South African, proud South African, and knowing the father of our nation have now left us?
Look, there were many stories about him passing on and moving on, and Madiba's dead and he's alive and all of that. So basically, when the news literally broke out at that time, it was a very, very emotional day. And I did not believe it until obviously it went out on the complimentary breakfast that, hey man, this is true that Madiba is literally no more. So it was a very emotional day for me.
And lastly, what would you say the legacy that he left for you personally?
Peace. That's it. Peace.
I'll never forget that day in my life when Nelson Mandela died. We were at Sun City for the Nedbank Golf Challenge, and we had a big party on the beach, about 5,000 people there. It was a white party, and at about 10 o'clock that night, everybody was in a good mood, eating, drinking, dancing, and all of a sudden the CEO went on stage and he announced that Nelson Mandela died, and 5,000 people we just hugged each other. People burst into tears. It was very emotional, and they virtually shut everything down. The party stopped and we all went back. Even at the casino, people were hugging each other and crying. And the thing that stood out for me was the next morning they phoned and said, you better get back to Midrand to do your radio show. And I heard Frankie on the radio, and he was crying, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this, because if he's crying like that. And 12 o'clock I went on and I cried, but I cried even more when I heard all the stories about people. Daar was een ou wat gebel het en hy het gesê, ek kan nie glo Nelson Mandela is dood. Dit voel soos my pa. Hy was my oupa geweest, that kind of thing. And then we burst into tears again. But I think as a radio station, we stood together. It was an amazing day in my life. And he's an amazing man, and his legend lives on.